Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I am gradually working my way through every HeroQuest quest book, taking a deep dive into each campaign to share what I like, what I don't, and sometimes spitballing ways I might have approached the same themes. And today I am looking at an old classic, one of the best quest packs ever made for HeroQuest, Kellar's Keep. I have already talked at length about this expansion, what it contains, and why I think it's an essential addition to a HeroQuest collection, even in light of the new, shinier expansions we are being spoiled with at the moment. And I will drop a couple of links in the video description for anyone who wants to check out my earlier videos. But today, I'm going to take a much closer look at each of the 10 quests in the Kellar's Keep campaign, and what they do that makes them special. Naturally, this video is going to be full of spoilers, so unless you are a Zargon player, I do recommend checking out some of my spoiler-free content instead. Otherwise, let's get into it. As I'm sure most people know, the plot of Kellar's Keep is set up in the conclusion of the base game campaign. The king rode out to battle Zargon's army, and things did not go well. Thanks to Zargon's magic, the king was defeated and driven back to Kellar's Keep, an abandoned dwarven stronghold. He is safe for now, but time is running out, and the heroes must rescue him. To do this, they will need to enter the secret tunnels surrounding the keep and locate 4 pieces of a stone map with directions to a place called Grin's Crag, a passageway that will lead them directly to Kellar's Keep and the trapped king. Sounds easy. There is just the small matter of the many orcs and goblins that have overrun the dwarven stronghold and made it their home. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is such a great plot. Rescue missions are always a good choice. They give you a chance to feel truly heroic as you know someone's life is on the line. There is a real sense of stakes right from the outset. You don't get a few missions where you wander around looking for things to do as the plot rumbles into motion. There are no side quests here. No training exercises, you've done all that already. This time, you are thrown straight into it. The king is in danger, the clock is ticking. You know what you need to do, and it's time to do it. The quest begins, assuming you don't play the downloadable prequel mission Forsaken Tunnels of Zorzel, at the Great Gate. Mentor leads the heroes to this imposing portal into the dark domains beneath the mountains, but will go no further. The heroes are on their own, although Mentor will still watch over them using the power of Lortome. The dungeons of the Kellar's Keep expansion often make use of entry and exit doors rather than the spiral staircase tile. Instead of exploring dungeons and then leaving the same way they arrived, the heroes tend to arrive by one door and leave by another. This, generally speaking, gives the dungeons a nice rhythm and flow, and it does feel like you are constantly moving forwards, pressing deeper into the heart of a dangerous environment. The first quest in this campaign is as straightforward as it gets. The heroes arrive by the door on the left and must fight through barracks stuffed to the brim with greenskins to reach the exit on the right. I'll be totally honest, as much as I love Kellar's Keep, this first mission isn't the best introduction they could have used. It leans very heavily on combat in overcrowded rooms, throws in a gargoyle that springs to life if you open the treasure chest next to it, like anyone is falling for that gag by this point in their adventuring career, and it has a dungeon layout bordering on obnoxious. If you take the wrong door out of the second room, you go on a slow trudge around the edge of half of the board for nothing. To make it worse, this mission pulls the same trick in the top right of the map as well. And that can really be a problem, because there are 3 secret doors on this map that are undetectable to heroes, but which Zargon can open on his turn whenever he chooses. He could wait until the heroes are lined up in the narrow perimeter corridor and then make it very difficult for them to get back out. I don't recommend doing that. Extended wars of attrition in narrow spaces are never fun. One thing I do like about the end of this mission is the final corridor has a stairway overlay. There is no in-game effect, but it's just a lovely little visual indication that the heroes are heading down deeper into the dungeons. I think it adds to the overall ominous atmosphere and sense of place. Quest 2 is the Warriors' Halls, or Trap Center if you prefer. This place is absolutely loaded with traps. I love the first 2 rooms where little goblins are placed as decoys to lure the heroes into a messy situation. You can imagine the poor little saps were the ones that drew the short straws and had to stand guard there. The reason there are so many traps is because the dwarves use this area as a training ground, and nowhere is that more obvious than in the central chamber, where there are spear traps, pit traps, and 4 enchanted suits of armour used for sparring. There is so much to love about this central chamber. 1. The combination of traps and monsters isn't easy to deal with. There is a very high chance of a few heroes stumbling into traps as they try to fight off the 4 powerful enemies. 2. Those enemies are represented by Dread Warrior miniatures and have Dread Warrior stats, but there is a lovely narrative reason for their presence. They are enchanted sparring partners for the dwarves. Yes, it's a shame they don't have any special rules to make them unique, but I appreciate the inclusion of a story beat that helps the heroes to better understand their environment and the ingenuity of the dwarves. And 3. You don't even need to go into this room. It's a tough challenge, and if the heroes stumble into it, they are going to have a rough time, but they don't have to deal with it. They can nope out of the room, bypass it completely, and never miss out on essential treasure. It's also nice to have the occasional reminder that a big fight doesn't necessarily equate to big rewards. I like the layout of this whole dungeon. The path splits, but both routes eventually end up at the exit, so you aren't forced to backtrack, which can always take the pace out of a game. And you can fully explore the map with relative ease if you so wish. It's worth finding the hidden armory at least, as it contains 2 magic throwing daggers. Quest 3, the Spiral Passage, is an example of beautiful design, of the layout of the map breathing life into the setting and grounding the reality of the world. The heroes must follow a winding passage that leads around and down to the Great Citadel beneath, and as a result, the whole map is a spiral. The heroes arrive in the top left and follow a circuitous route around the edge of the board, then through to the centre, where they skirt the edge of the central chamber before finally reaching the spiral staircase tile. It's really lovely, and the regular use of the staircase overlays helps to emphasise that sense of a descending spiral. This mission also has a splendid set piece right at the start. When the last hero passes the space marked A rolling boulder crashes into the corridor behind them. It moves the sum of 2 red dice each turn, and if it touches a hero, they take a 5 dice hit with no defense roll. Once it reaches the end of the corridor, the boulder crashes into the wall and blocks the way ahead. This is a really fun moment, really tense and exciting. There are issues to be aware of though. Firstly, if the heroes are doing what heroes normally do and keeping the wizard at the back for safety, keep in mind that 1 hit from the boulder could well smash him to pieces. Secondly, this trap is far less terrifying if you are using the unthreatened movement rule. It's highly likely the heroes will be able to outrun the boulder relatively easily, which may be okay. The threat of the boulder is probably more fun than the event of it striking a hero anyway. The only other thing of note in this quest is something I am in 2 minds about. In certain areas there are multiple traps that are so well hidden that searching will only reveal the one closest to the heroes. That's sort of fun because heroes will think they are safe and then they will get hit by a trap they missed. The downside is, once that has happened, heroes are going to search for traps multiple times in every area, in every quest, for the end of time. It's the sort of thing that could make future games take a lot longer to get through. Quest 4 is the Dwarven Forge. The heroes have to fight through more orcs to reach the forge where a piece of the map is hidden. I particularly like how the intro text is worded, as it makes it clear that even though greenskins have taken over, they haven't been able to find the forge. That's a clue to the heroes that the forge is going to be concealed behind secret doors and devoid of orc enemies. It's a really interesting map too, comprising small rooms and short, narrow tunnels that emphasise the sense of claustrophobia as the heroes wriggle through cramped secret ways. There is even a treasure chest concealed behind a treasure chest in a walled off section of corridor, which is pretty neat. This quest also starts with another cool moment where the first orc that dies screams, alerting all the enemies in the nearby room. I think this event probably could have happened in a more interesting area, perhaps where the enemies could appear from behind the heroes, but I do enjoy small story beats like this. We also get an abomination with the ability to cast the rust spell 3 times, and the Dwarven Forge itself is an environmental hazard, spitting out blazing embers that burn heroes who finish their move in the room for 1 body point. It's at this forge that the heroes will find the first map piece. Moving on, we have Quest 5, Hall of the Dwarven Kings. This is a gimmick mission with another big event to get pulses racing. The heroes enter by a long corridor. They will expect traps. they will expect ambushes, but nothing happens. If you have ever played Silent Hill 2, recall those first few moments as you walk down the mountain path to the town, constantly expecting something terrible as your unease grows. Then, eventually, when the heroes reach the square marked A, the sounds of a war party echo in the passages, and at the beginning of each of Zargon's turns, he can roll one red dice to see how many monsters will appear through the doorway by which the heroes entered. This is an endless tide of predominantly greenskins. The heroes cannot hope to fight, so they must flee in the darkness. As they run, they will pass through the burial tomb of great Dwarven kings, where they will find powerful skeletons that are prepared to defend their homes, but only if the heroes attack first. Despite all this, the heroes should still take time to search as they go, because there is another part of the map to be found before they can leave. An important point to note about this mission is that once the monsters start arriving, the heroes won't be able to use unthreatened movement anymore, which is going to create more of a feeling of breathless tension as they scramble to get away. Quest 6 is the Great Citadel. This is where the majority of the Orc forces now reside, and the heroes can expect tough fights against large numbers of greenskin foes. Just look at that gauntlet they will have to face before they can exit the map from the door to the north. Loot has been somewhat lacking in Kellar's Keep up to now, but this level makes up for it. There is a third part of the stone map, 2 healing potions, a magical dagger, 3 randomly drawn spell scrolls, and a crossbow. We also get our first proper boss on this level, Gragor the Evil Magician. Interestingly, you don't have to fight him. You can bypass his room completely and book it for the exit. But killing him does reward the heroes with 2 of those spell scrolls, and they're always nice to have because it means non-spellcasters get to throw around a bit of magic sometimes. The Gauntlet of Greenskins leads to Quest 7, the Eastern Passage, where the heroes can locate the final piece of the map. And this quest could well explain why there are no trolls in any of the HeroQuest retail expansions. They are all too busy designing the maps. Just look at the state of that corridor in the bottom right. There is a pit trap and 7 spear traps leading up to a door at the edge of the board. By this point in the quest, the heroes know that doors on the edge of the board represent the way out, so they are going to spend a fair old while disarming, and sometimes tripping, all of those traps to reach the door, and once they get there, they will find it is wedged shut and cannot be opened. This is not the door you're looking for. The real exit is in the top left. Also notice the room to the top right. There are traps everywhere, including directly in front of the door. And that gargoyle? Yeah, that's not a gargoyle, it's just a statue. The notes for the quest make it a point that you shouldn't tell the heroes this, and you should enjoy watching them tiptoe around it, waiting for it to spring into life, which it never will. There is another boss here, Ograk. He's just a brawler, but what makes him interesting is that if things go badly for him, he can reveal the secret door in his room and escape into the adjacent location where reinforcements await. Once the heroes have the final piece of the map, they can move on to Quest 8, Belorn's Mine. Zargon has blocked the main passage to the east gate, forcing the heroes to traverse treacherous abandoned mines. And this is another quest where the map layout effectively creates a strong identity for the location. There are very few doors or rooms, and the rooms that are present don't contain a lot of furniture. Only a single table is used across the whole map. Most of the time the heroes will be wandering through long winding tunnels, the narrow mine shafts the dwarves carved out in another age. There is only one room of any real interest, and that is the treasure room where the dwarves hoarded their trinkets and baubles. And of course, being dwarves, they protected their belongings with many traps. What I particularly like about this level is that at the beginning the heroes are warned that the mines are unsafe and prone to cave-ins, and this is represented throughout the mission by the presence of falling rock traps. I love it when there is a strong thematic reason for the presence of particular enemies or traps like this. It feels so much more immersive when you can see the purpose behind the design, and maps have that narrative connective tissue that makes the world feel real and believable. It's nice to see a bit more trolling on this level too. There are 2 trapdoors that connect through a secret passageway. No matter which trapdoor you go through, when you pop out the other end, you are going to come face to face with a strong force of greenskins. But eventually the heroes will find a door that leads to Quest 9, the East Gate. This mission is relatively straightforward, but there are some really fun enemies and special events scattered throughout. We get our one and only instance of a really cool new monster, a shape changer. It starts as an abomination, but when it is killed, Zargon shuffles all the monster cards and takes the top one to see what the shapeshifter turns into. The monster only dies if the card drawn matches its current form, so unless the heroes get lucky, this could be a fight that goes on for a while. I think this is a neat idea. I do wish they had included some way for the heroes to learn the secret of the shapeshifter though, so they would understand the conditions under which it would finally die. There should probably be some way to remove monsters from the monster card deck as well, increasing the chances of drawing the card that would result in the creature's death. We also get another boss to contend with, Borok, the Dread Sorcerer. This guy isn't messing around as he has a special skill. On his turn he can attack the mind of any hero in the same room or corridor, rolling 2 combat dice. For each skull, the target loses 1 mind point, and if they are reduced to 0 mind points they are dead, and only an elixir of life can save them. Do note, these rules were written before the rules for shock were introduced in the Frozen Horror expansion, so this is a special circumstance in which being reduced to 0 mind points has a different effect to what is now the accepted norm. You could adjust the mission to use the rules for shock instead, but I like Borok being a more intimidating foe. The East Gate itself also presents a challenge. Heroes can only pass through it if they roll equal to or less than their mind score on 2 movement dice. The dwarf has a natural advantage and only rolls 1 dice. This rule is fine, but somewhat pointless. Once the heroes are at the gate, there is no real sense in preventing them from passing through unless Zargon is able to constantly spawn new monsters, putting them under increased pressure to flee. Finally, the heroes reach Quest 10, Grin's Crag, and this, frankly, is brilliant, and a masterclass in cleverly hinting to the heroes what they should do and how they should do it, tying together everything they have already seen and done to create a satisfying conclusion. Throughout the campaign, the heroes have been accumulating the pieces of a map. Don't tell them, but they should really put those pieces together and look at the completed puzzle, because it accurately reflects the layout of this final quest and shows them exactly where the exit is. Of course, sometimes heroes in their excitement can overlook such simple things, but the intro text for this mission very gently prods them. It states, "Now you must find your way to Grin's Crag. Remember your task. Do not stray from it. Grin's Crag is guarded. You must tread carefully." To put it another way, it says, remember you have a map, look at it and don't stray from the indicated path. And the heroes really do need to be careful here because this final level is packed to the roof with monsters, and there is also a blinding cloud of dread that can ensnare them, forcing them to randomly determine which door they pass through and potentially delivering them into the arms of awaiting undead enemies. Grin's Crag is presented on the board with a map overlay showing the cliff edge as depicted on the expansion's cover art. Unfortunately, there are no special rules for the cliff, it's just set dressing. As soon as a player steps onto the cliff, a gargoyle will pounce. Yes, the front cover art spoils the big final battle. This gargoyle has more body points than others and is immune to all spells. Sounds like barbarian work to me. And once the heroes slay the gargoyle, they can leave the map and they have completed the quest. Their reward? One of the most exciting and memorable moments in the history of HeroQuest. A moment of true valor and a reminder that your players are not the only heroes in this world. The door opened into the darkness of Kellar's Keep. From far above came the thunder of battle. The forces of Zargon were making their final assault. This time, there could be no holding them. The king assembled his elite force of Guardian Knights, determined to organise one last line of defence. Then came the news. A group of heroes had found a secret passage into Kellar's Keep. Escape was now possible. Without hesitation, the king ordered his army to fall back to the secret passage. Kennaran, the captain of the Guardian Knights, stood bravely at the gate, giving his fellow soldiers and the wounded time to escape. Zargon and the evil sorcerer's foul forces could not be permitted to follow. Time and time again the Doom Guard surged forward, only to be felled by Kennaran's sword. Zargon watched for a while, and smiled wryly at Kennaran's courage and skill at arms. A moment later, Zargon's patience was spent. Kennaran fell before a searing storm of flame that burst against the gate. But it was too late. Zargon's warriors howled in anger for the escape passage had been destroyed. The king and his army were safe. Adventure games don't get more epic than that. And that to me is Kellar's Keep's greatest achievement. It feels epic. It's a true continuation of the base game story, packed with exciting moments and driven by a storyline that sends the heroes on a breathless race against time for the fate of the kingdom. Sure, it doesn't have the diversity of enemies seen in later expansions. It doesn't have all the cool terrain. It doesn't have new heroes. And there are oversights. Stairways and Grin's Crag itself should have had special rules, and more could have been done with the scarce few bosses you meet on the way to save the king. But overall, Kellar's Keep is pitch-perfect storytelling in a well-realised setting, with some inventive twists on well-used formulas and enough standout set pieces to be memorable. It is HeroQuest. And that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.